All of this comes after Israel said it wanted to send its military forces into Rafah, wanted to evacuate the area. That's in the south of Gaza. Currently around 1.5 million Palestinians are trying to find shelter in Rafah after Israel forced them out of northern Gaza. In other words, as I understand the geography there, there's really nowhere else for them to go. Advocate Sipho Mantula is a researcher at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs. Advocate Mantula, good evening to you and thank you for your time. So the International Criminal Court, we've now written this letter to them. What do you think judges are going to do from here? It's a very complex situation.
Afternoon, Stephen, even to your viewers. That is quite true, Stephen, that the ICJ will definitely have to engage on this. Acting on Article 75, paragraph 1, Stephen, this is a very important moment for the court to use its powers. Remember, when you look at that clause, Stephen, the court at any given time, and this is an initiative taken by one of the member states, a signatory, which is South Africa. And secondly, Stephen, beyond ICJ, remember that ICC also, Karima Khan, has been talking about this Rafah issue to say that there is an immediate threat, an imminent threat that is coming from the state of Israel against Palestine. And you can see now, Stephen, that ICJ will also have to consider what I saw as the UN Special Rapporteur on Palestine, who have already raised the even concern that he has not been allowed to move between the two borders of Egypt and the south of Gaza. So one can look that Israel, it is losing the momentum, despite that it is no longer using diplomacy. It is using intelligence also, Stephen, because both Mossad and the CIA, they are colluding on this military intervention under the guise of rescuing hostages, because they should have allowed both parties to engage about how do you release hostage, compared to what we know that South Africa has been pursuing the question of humanitarian aid. And there at the south of Gaza, as you have said earlier, you have 1 million people who will be vulnerable to this unjustified military intervention.
This puts pressure on the Palestinians, I mean just the most intense, intolerable pressure. Egypt as well, and that border post, as I understand it, with Rafah, it is the border post into Egypt, but it is controlled jointly by Egypt and not the Palestinians, Egypt and the Israelis. So it's really Israeli forces compressing the Palestinians in an impossible situation.
No, correct, Stephen, and that is the sad nature of the Berlin Conference after effects of the border disputes and the border management. But I think what is important also, Stephen, as you said, Egypt also as a member of the Arab League, as a member of the African Union, considering also the role of South Africa in the AU Peace and Security Council, and its role lately last month when we took the matter to the ICJ, that the issue of immediate humanitarian ceasefire, it is important. So if one looks, Egypt has been engaging with the CIA, like earlier I was saying. Mossad also is part of this plot of dealing with the issue of the release of the hostages. But if you look, Stephen, again, it's a matter that even the United Nations is not even convinced to support this illegal evacuation plan. Very important, that is also shocking that your UK, your Germany are not turning their back against Netanyahu. So this shows that both Israel and USA must think twice. Now, if you have superpowers who are part of the UN Security Council who are worried about the current situation in the Rafah area, but I think, Stephen, our motion yesterday is also to strengthen what we have already done between 11 January and 12 January to say that we need an immediate ceasefire. We need to deal with the acts of genocide that are now simmering or are now emerging now in the south of Gaza. So this is worrying, Stephen, in the international geopolitics. But like I said, we see foreign policy now is being infiltrated by the what I call the forces of the darkness, which is the forces of illegal intelligence led by CIA as well as Mossad.
Josep Borrell, senior leader in the European Union, said yesterday that that basically people should no longer arm Israel. He's talking about EU. I mean, this is a major step, isn't it? But it's always, and it always comes back to this, it's always about the United States.
Correct, Stephen. Actually, that's the point I was going to say, but who's aiding and abetting the military armament of Israel? We know very well it is USA. And I thought Biden will change his mind more so. He's in an electioneering year, that he could think twice, divert that money of aiding and abetting Israel against the people of Palestine, and look at the question that faces the people of America, rather than jumping into the matters of Israel and Palestine through aiding and supporting the Israeli army with ammunition. And like you said, the EU have to pull out also, because the key buzzword, Stephen, now is immediate humanitarian aid, providing water, shelter, health to the people of Palestine who are still reeling the suffering of the events of October 7 that has culminated to this challenge. So if one looks, Stephen, it is also the role of the Arab League, it is also the role of the AU or the role of the UN humanitarian agency. How do they deal with this current situation? More so, like I said, you have interference of the superpowers by clandestinely supporting Israel. And remember, even South Africa was allegedly said that we are the legal arm of Hamas, which I find it facade and nonsensical to say, how can we be a legal arm of a non-state party like Hamas? Because Hamas is a military wing. It's not even the state party.
Rights Advocate Sipho Mantula, really appreciate the time. Thank you. From a researcher at the Thabo Mbeki School of Public and International Affairs at UNISA.